what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through.
Now, so we should be live.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. With us, we've got most of the crew here. We got Dave, Rob, Dan, Alex, and myself. And a little bit of a change tonight. We're going to be focusing on Trump's 2 executive orders, and we'll dedicate a good majority of the time to that because there's a lot to go through on these, I think. And I'm sure everybody's got a little bit of differing opinions on this, and but we'll just take a little bit here and kind of show you what we've got going on here. So let me get this pulled up.
And while you're doing that, Josh, I just remind everyone we welcome questions during and after this discussion. We're into this up to our eyeballs, so we have a pretty good understanding of what's going on, and we're welcome and helping with any questions.
All right. So first on the docket here is President Trump's executive order on unleashing American drone dominance. So first things first, let's kind of just go through what the purpose is. So he goes through unmanned aircraft system, otherwise known as drones, enhance United States productivity, create high-skilled jobs, and are reshaping the future of aviation. Drones are already transforming industries from logistics and infrastructure inspection to precision agriculture.
Hey, Rob, can we trouble you to go on mute, Rob? We're getting a fair amount of ambient noise from your line.
Oh, I thought it was muted. My bad.
All good, bud. All right. Drones are already transforming industries from logistics and infrastructure inspection to precision agriculture, emergency response, and public safety. Emerging technologies such as electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft promise to modernize methods for cargo delivery, passenger transport, and other advanced air mobility capabilities. The United States must accelerate the safe commercialization of drone technologies and fully integrate UAS into the national airspace system. The time has come to accelerate testing and to enable routine drone operations, scale up domestic production, and expand the export of trusted American manufactured drone technologies to global markets. Building a strong and secure domestic drone sector is vital to reducing reliance on foreign sources, strengthening critical supply chains, and ensuring the benefits of this technology are delivered to the American people. From a statement of purpose, I have no disagreements with any of this. I mean, I'm a little skeptical on, air taxis and the like, but that's just me personally. Otherwise, I think that all of this seems like a good idea. Any thoughts around the room?
Just that catching up in UTM, unmanned traffic management, as well as advanced air mobility would be a good thing. And the U.S. is so far behind in drone technology that sure, we've got good products, but they're not at the level of where DJI is. So
Correct.
Anything that could help us along the way would be helpful.
Yep. All right. So we're going to kind of skip around here a little bit and kind of hit some of these. So Section 4 is expanding commercial unmanned aircraft system operation. So the executive order states that within 30 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of Transportation, acting through the administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration, shall issue a proposed rule enabling routine beyond visual line of sight operations for UAS for commercial and public safety purposes. A final rule shall be published within 240 days of the date of this order as appropriate. And then within 30 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of Transportation, acting through the administrator of the FAA, shall establish clear metrics for assessing the performance and safety of beyond visual line of sight operations, and with 180 days of the date of this order, shall identify and describe additional regulatory barriers and challenges to BV loss implementation, with recommendations to the president through the director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy for addressing such issues expeditiously and informing future rulemaking or legislative actions. And within 120 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of Transportation, acting through the administrator of the FAA, shall initiate the deployment of artificial intelligence tools to assist and expedite the review of UAS waiver applications under 14 CFR Part 107. These AI tools shall support performance and risk-based evaluation of proposed operations, identify material similar precedents, and recommend consistent mitigation measures, assist the FAA in identifying categories of operation with sufficient safety data or recurring approval patterns that may warrant further rulemaking to eliminate the need of individualized waivers, and be used in accordance with the guidance of federal use of AI as detailed in the Office of Management and Budget Memorandum. So, I mean, realistically, all this is good stuff. I mean, we've dilly dallied on BV loss for so long. I think it has hindered a lot of growth in the commercial side of drone use in unmanned aircraft. And I wish this was a little faster, to be frank. I feel like a lot of this work has been done. There was a very thorough BV loss arc that Dave and Dan, I believe, participated on, and did a lot of this work for them. But at the same time, we were promised this last year. We were promised this by February. We were promised this by March. It is now June. And I wish this was a little faster. However, I do like, for me, I like the fact that it's like, really, let's figure out what the barriers are and let's eliminate them. And I think that's fair. Dave?
Yeah, if I can, so civics review rules come from federal agencies and come along with civil violations. Congress is the only body that makes laws, and they can create laws and they can create criminal violations. So the process for regulation is a notice for public rulemaking, comments on the notice for public rulemaking, then the agency comes back with a rule. That's the process for all federal agencies, including the FAA. It's not crystal clear that this this executive order, stipulates a comment period out to the public. One of the executive orders that this administration published this year said that they don't really need a public comment period. So we'll keep an eye on this. We'll give it the benefit of the doubt. We're hopeful that it is a public comment period, and if it's not, we will be speaking very loudly, because that's the way that we tried to get some better sense. I mean, if we all think back to remote ID, 53,000 comments, dramatic change between the notice for public rulemaking and the final rule, which was 1 year later.
So I would also say that the whole section there about AI is a very bad idea. I mean, unless you're the kind of person who would like to, say, have a kindergartner with a vivid imagination being in charge of your rules and whether or not your waivers get approved, then it's probably great.
I mean, I think
Well
it
said.
comes down to the level of machine learning that they use with this, but I'm in agreement. I'm not super thrilled about the AI part. I mean, I'm not a super AI kind of person. I'm a little bit old school, but at the same time, being able to identify things that, hey, there's a sufficient amount of safety data here, let's eliminate that waiver. I mean, that is a process that I feel like has been in place to a certain degree, or it has been touted that they're doing. But at the same time, I'd like to see the evidence of that. And if it's like, hey, this type of flight doesn't really require a waiver anymore, I think that's a net benefit. But at the same time, is AI the proper use of that tool? I'm kind of with you, Dan.
If they're just using it incorrectly and throwing out the term AI when they really mean using a computer algorithm that says, oh, you meet these certain requirements, good, you're good to go, and meet checkboxes, sure. But I don't trust that that's what they're doing. I think they're just going to try to farm this off to an AI version of a human that's not going to do the right thing at all.
Right. We also have to be cognizant that the FAA is dealing with a lesser workforce, and needless to say, they've got their hands absolutely full with the air traffic control issues across the country. So this, this is important to us. Will this be, rise to the level of importance that it gets adequately funded when you're talking about what was a 45,000 person organization? Now it's thousands of people less.
So we also do have a few questions here in the YouTube chat. Let's see. One of the Morton's asking, how does one access this for public comment without submitting a form letter? Are there any points we want to focus on?
Great. So great question. So of course, what we're looking at, the document that we're looking at today is done. It's an executive order that was issued last Friday, June 6th. So no comments, it just comes.
It just is.
It's a gift to us.
Yeah.
There are a number of individual notice for public rulemaking issues, deliveries that we anticipate. The big one is beyond visual line of sight, which should incorporate Part 108, a new certification for extended beyond visual line of sight. So that's the one that Josh mentioned should be within 30 days. We will write up, we're ready for it. We're looking for specific content in it, and we anticipate it will be hundreds of pages. That's the one we will publish the website of here's how you post comments. And it's the NPRM that you do not want to do a copy and paste because they check for duplicates and that nullifies your input. So we will share our opinions, and we encourage everyone to put it into your own words, take from what we say that you feel is important, and then provide your own rationale as to why it's important. Dan, did we hit that question?
Yeah, I think so.
Also circling back to the comment from today's comment about talking about if there would be a comment period on the BV loss rule. When we were at the Commercial Drone Alliance summit earlier in May, we learned that from the FAA's, I believe, director of rulemaking, that they were planning to have an extended comment period for this rule.
Good.
So I wonder, so that's before executive order, that's what the rulemaking side of the FAA was planning for, was to have the normal comment period plus an extended comment period on here. So I don't know if this executive order is going to change that to maybe they're going to just keep it to the one. It's going to be harder to get an extension, but that's another factor to consider, is that the FAA was intending for a longer period already.
That's great. And Dan and I had the privilege of working with both of the two directors of rulemaking. These are longtime FAA executives as well as aviation experts and very serious guys. So if they're involved, that's a good thing.
Good. All right. So the next one is going to be section 5, which is it's a little vague, but it says furthering unmanned aircraft system integration into the national airspace. So it says within 240 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of Transportation, acting through the administrator of the FAA, shall publish an updated roadmap for the integration of civil UAS into the national airspace system. Secretary of Transportation, acting through the administrator of the FAA, shall ensure all FAA UAS test ranges are fully utilized to support the development, testing, and scaling of American drone technologies with a focus on BV loss operations, increasingly autonomous operations, advanced air mobility, and other advanced operations. The Secretary shall prioritize the generation of safety and performance data at UAS test ranges to inform FAA rulemaking, identify regulatory gaps and operational challenges, and support the integration of emerging UAS capabilities into the national airspace system. So, I mean, That's a little vague, but civil is to me is going to be things like drone delivery. It's going to be infrastructure inspection. It's going to be agricultural type stuff. It's going to be all the stuff that isn't really federal kind of stuff, if that makes sense. Am I wrong here?
I think you're on the money. And now,
Okay.
because I'm a paranoid personality, I look at the director of OSTP. Does that mean oh stop? But OSTP, and there's no mention explicitly about the public or industry. So it does appear to be a federal body establishing this on their own. I mean, it's good if they do it, but we'll see how this goes. So my recommendation would be we'll be watching this one carefully.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. I'm going to skip down. Just so you think I'm not skipping anything like super relevant. This is electric vertical takeoff and landing. This is
Isn't that what we do every time we fly?
yeah, but this is more for people movers,
Cargo,
that kind of cargo stuff. So I'm going to skip over that. This is the next interesting: strengthening the American drone industrial base. It says all agencies shall prioritize the integration of UAS manufactured in the United States over those made abroad to the maximum extent permitted by law. In order to protect the integrity of Americans' drone supply chain and ensure our technology remains secure from undue foreign influence and exploitation, within 30 days of this order, the Federal Acquisition Security Council shall publish a covered foreign entity list as defined in Section 1822, subsection 1 of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2024, identifying companies that pose supply chain risks. To ensure that vital components remain under American control and free from national security risk, within 90 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of Commerce shall take action, including proposing rulemaking and conducting investigations to secure the United States drone supply against foreign control or exploitation. So realistically, it's a rehashing of the covered entity list, covered foreign entity list, I should say. And it looks like components rather than full drones. I'm not 100% sure here, but it does say vital components. So realistically,
the discussions that Alex and I have had with the Department of Commerce relate to exactly this type of thought process, which is not only drones for us, but also components. So if we think, oh, great, there's no issue with components, we can just, assemble here in the United States. Nope, this goes down to components as well. The other takeaway I have from this is whoever is writing this is reasonably knowledgeable in our business and industry, and they've crafted together a series of existing laws and remits delegated from Congress, or mandates from Congress to specific and different federal agencies, and then stitch that together to a directive. Not a bad idea. However, as we think about, all right, is Congress involved? Is there oversight? Is there explicit funding? How does this come together? Normally, a cross-agency piece of work is a mandate explicitly from Congress. So while I like the overall intent of this, it's well thought through. Where's the funding? Where's Congress on this? Because they're supposed to have a role.
All right.
Yeah, it scares me a little how it depends how you interpret some of those sentences. Like prioritizing our homemade, our United States built drones over foreign ones, like integrating them into the airspace. Like, okay, so what do you mean? You mean like, so if a United States company comes up with a special way to use a UTM or something, they'll prioritize that and make it so that they work in the United States airspace over something DJI does, and so then it won't work in other countries, or maybe then foreign drones will have to be built in a different way or won't work here at all. And like, is that what they mean, or do they mean something different?
I'm with you. Yeah, I think a good dose of skepticism is really required, and it's not that we're, as my son would tell me, Dad, you're being a negative Nancy. Not that I'm being negative, but I think we're learning to be very inquisitive and skeptical about what does it really mean, and so this is a high level executive order as we've described. Let's see what it
Yeah,
turns out
in
to
some
be
cases, it's
when it
vague
hits the
enough
ground.
that it'll be so that they can make whatever it is they want happen, and say, hey, see, it was in the executive order.
Right.
Yeah,
All
the
right.
component thing has me concerned as well because components, it could be individual pieces, but components also compose a fully RTF aircraft, which would be back to the DJI Autel argument. So
Oh yeah.
I really hope that
It's full aircraft and components. And to me, this is comprehensive. And if we can see some positive news, positive elements in the news today, certainly the discussions between China and Secretaries Bessent and Commerce. Why is his name Lutnick? Um, in London with the Chinese, with the right level of people. They said that they agreed to a framework on how to work together for the tariffs with respect to rare earths. So this is not a final deal. That'll take months and months. But no one stormed out of the meetings, and they left, and both sides said that there was a framework agreed to. So a big positive around rare earths.
Absolutely. Those rare earths, in case you're wondering, those are going to be your lithium. Those are going to be your magnets, neodymium style. That is, I mean, all that stuff is used in drones. Several other varying chemicals and not chemicals, but minerals that are used in batteries and all that kind of stuff. So,
and medicines as well. Interesting.
Yep. All right, this one's interesting. Promoting the export of American-made civil unmanned aircraft system. The Secretary of Commerce, in coordination with the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, and the Secretary of Energy, shall review, as appropriate and consistent with applicable law, amend export control regulations within 90 days of the date of this order to enable the expedited export of United States manufactured civil UAS to foreign partners, provided such end users and recipient countries are not identified as foreign adversaries and the export does not pose a risk of diversion to programs of concern or are otherwise restricted under applicable statutes or regulations.
So the United States wants to do what they're accusing China of doing.
Of
Right.
course they do. Yeah. I mean, realistically, but here's the flip side to this. And, I'm just, this is my negative Nancy coming out. With DJI available and not banned in other countries, who wants to pay the cost of an American drone?
Right.
I mean, let's be frank here.
If you can make them better somehow, then sure. But
Yeah, 100%.
they're not.
Yeah. Yeah. The
Right.
old expression of you can buy better, but you can't pay more.
All right. Just throwing that out there, guys.
So from a smaller, so most of the companies that we're interested in FPV are smaller to very small companies. So as you scan down this direct loan and loan guarantees, probably not available to small companies. Equity investment. Ugh. So private equity, federal equity investment. So private equity usually wants like a 5 to 6x multiple on their investment. So that's not 50 or 60, that's 5 to 600% in a small number of years. So not many startups can handle that. So the one that really got my attention was item 4, technical assistant, feasibility studies, and then the magic grant mechanisms. So watching grants come out of this. Now, is this so now thinking back, all right, look at all of these agencies that are involved. Do these agencies, have grants? Yes. Are the grants, have grants been frozen from January? Yes, they have. So I envision that this would be turning on the federal grant system, and this could be an opportunity for small design and manufacturing companies to garner grants to stimulate their own building, manufacturing, and design, at which point they would not have encumbered intellectual property and they would not be on the hook for a loan. So, okay, all right, I'm perked up. All right, where's the beep? Where's the beep?
I like the
Sounds
last
good.
one. Any other incentive mechanism authorized by law.
Allowed by, authorized by law. All right. So as long as it's moral and legal. Okay.
Well, and here's the thing too, is like, driving drone development within the United States. I think a lot of us have said that a little bit of incentives, whether that be monetary or otherwise, would go a long way towards inspiring people to start businesses or push forward that idea. But I mean, it's hard sometimes, especially with the economy that we've had, to really dive into that without some level of incentive or subsidy or anything like that to gain a little confidence to start that business, right? So um
Now, one of the things along those points, one of the things that was interesting to us is that absent from this entire executive order is any mention on recreational.
mhm.
So happily, Alex and I had a great discussion with a team from Commerce, where they were very receptive to that recreational drones, drones in schools, helps STEM, helps resource pools, as well as recreational drones have been an absolute source of innovation. So they were very attentive to what can we do to help recreational programs as well as school programs, because that's the start of getting an industry going in a country. So, like I said, it's nowhere here, but that's a message and an element that we will continue to be pressing.
All right. Section 9. This one's interesting. So, it's delivering drones to our warfighters. So, the Department of Defense must be able to procure, integrate, and train using low-cost, high-performing drones manufactured in the United States. Secretary of Defense shall ensure all platforms on the Defense Innovation Unit's Blue UAS list can, as soon as possible and to the fullest extent practicable, operate on all military installations or ranges without requiring an exception to policy. So I've read a couple articles, and I'm not going to cover those articles now, but basically this means that drones are now going to be trained on almost all military bases, military ranges, and all that kind of stuff. So it says within 90 days of the date of this order, expand DIU's Blue UAS list to include all drones and critical drone components compliant with Section 848 of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2020 to the fullest extent practicable, including update the Blue UAS list on a monthly basis.
So I read this item too, again and again and again. And I think this means if you're NDAA compliant, you should be able to get on the blue list, the Blue UAS list. I think that's what that's saying. If I'm correct, that would be a really bad idea. Blue UAS is a well vetted process. NDAA compliance is self certification.
Mhm.
So if I want to say, yeah, I'm NDAA compliant, go for it.
Well, I think it's like I don't know if I agree with you on that, but I think like if you apply, like if you're working in that, you can submit for approval on that Blue UAS list, and that Blue UAS list has been only updated how many times? Like
once.
I think
Once
we
or
initiated
twice,
it
once,
and then we did an update, right?
Yep,
And that was
yep.
a year apart, if not
Right.
longer. Being able to apply for that Blue UAS certification on a monthly basis is definitely a boon for a lot of these smaller manufacturers that want to get that. And I think I read an article, there was only 12 companies currently on that blue UAS list. So that may leave some room for newcomers to come in, right? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah, that would go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to say, I assume most of this section is, hey, we saw what they're doing in Ukraine. Why aren't we doing that? And I'm
Yeah, I
really
would imagine.
surprised, like, why aren't they already doing some of that? Really?
Yeah, and if
I'm
you
pretty
think
sure
of
they are.
what's not present in this executive order is what Ukraine did. Ukraine brought together military, academia, and industry and put them literally in one room. And these people work together, and that's been the essence of their drone problem solving and production organization. So we're not being invaded by a foreign adversary. So there's not that level of motivation, but to have something explicit that would bring together academics, industry, and government in a way where there's transparent funding, not a bad approach.
Mm-hmm. All right. It says ensure the procurement of drones compliant with Section 848 of the 2020 NDAA made by United States company is prioritized over the procurement of drones made by all other companies to the maximum extent practicable, and that that exemptions and waivers to Section 848 of the 2020 NDAA are used only when absolutely necessary to accomplish the mission.
Well, so if you say something like a DJI drone is the only thing that can do this, then it's not practicable to do anything else, right?
I mean, realistically, and then and ensure that compliance with Section 848 does not inhibit the rapid adoption of drone technology required to exceed the capabilities of our foreign adversaries. So it's almost like, we're going to update the blue UAS list. I think the idea is, and we'll go back to the beginning here, is to train using low cost, high performing drones. And I'm going to emphasize low cost because I feel like a lot of the stuff that's on the the blue UAS list is not low cost at this point. And ensuring that it doesn't inhibit the rapid adoption of drone technology. I feel like it's two sides of a coin. It's like, we're going to do this, but let's not do it to the point where we can't do what we need to do. Am I wrong in my understanding of that?
I think you're right.
Okay. All right. So let's see. Within 90 days to the day of this order, the Secretary of Defense shall coordinate with the Secretary of Transportation, acting through the administrator of the FAA, to streamline the approval process to expand access to airspace for conducting UAS training. Within 90 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of Defense shall, in consultation with the Secretary of Commerce, acting through the Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Communications and Information, and the FCC, submit a report to the President through the Assistant. God, man, there's a lot of people in this. Assistant to the President of National Security Affairs, describing any unnecessary barriers for accessing electromagnetic spectrum for conducting UAS training.
However, like OSTOP above, for national NSPA, this appears to be all federal employees. I don't see any industry. I don't see public comment. I don't see Congress.
Yeah.
So this is like, whoa. So this is another one to watch because this feels like overreach.
Unnecessary barriers to accessing electromagnetic spectrum. Well, the barriers are, probably all necessary. All the spectrum spoken before.
Well, I'm guessing that's really speaking to the FCC delegation on the 5300 megahertz band area, that rule that they're working on.
Yeah, it's like, why aren't they done with that already?
I think that's where that. I'm pretty sure that's where that's what that's targeting.
Right. I'd be delighted if that was just it. The language is so general here that there's, and there is nothing with respect to rulemaking process, public comment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I hear you, and I hope that's just what it is. But this writing is so much broader.
All right, and then last but not least, within 90 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of Defense shall task the Secretary of each military department to identify programs that would be more cost efficient or lethal if replaced by UAS, and shall submit a report to the President through the APNSA. So that's the last of that. General provisions, just all the legalese kind of stuff. So overall, what's the take on this? Do we feel like this is a good thing? Is it good if? Is it wholly bad? Like, what's the thought here?
Well, nothing jumps out as, hey, this is going to harm recreation,
Mhm.
at least not on the face of it. But it depends how it's implemented, of course. If like
Right.
that spectrum thing is, oh, a barrier that we can get rid of is recreation's using this
Amateurs.
spectrum, amateurs, let's just ban them from using it. Well, that would affect us.
Yeah, 100%.
The other thing that's not clear to me is why bother? Why would you issue this executive order if it's stitching together existing statute, which we think it is, existing regs, which we think it is, and stating the obvious, which we think it is? Is this simply window dressing and stating a policy or a direction? If
Or
so, why use an executive order for this?
well,
So,
and here's my thought on it. Is it just pardon my language, is it just a fucking kick in the ass to these agencies to get shit done?
well, the agency heads are cabinet secretaries that report to the president. So, why do you need an executive order that goes public to put them on notice publicly? This is an administration that is not taking guidance from the public. So what's the purpose of this executive order? I don't understand that.
From reading it, I think it's a lot of just show just to make it seem like there's something being done. That I think that's where I kind of the impression I got from reading them. It just making it look better in a sense. But
Yeah,
I am also
there's
curious of it does have that 30 days for BB loss and PRM. What's going to happen when the FAA doesn't meet that? Like really
right.
realistically,
Nothing, right?
I don't think the FAA is going to be able to meet that, and I have a feeling there's probably not going to be any recourse either.
Yeah. Do we think the administrator of the FAA is going to be fired if if he can't make that date? I don't think so. We've had a revolving door with FAA administrators to the detriment of the safety of air air travel in the United States. That's a critically important position in the government. So you don't take out the FAA administrator for missing a date like that. Do you take out the executive director of the UAS integration office? That's another new person.
And then also the what was it? The third day. So when we were at the CDA Expo or the CDA summit,
Innovation Summit?
yeah, the Innovation Summit, they said that the rule was with the White House. So
Right.
they said that the White House was going to take about 6 months, and once it got back from the White House, then they could publish it. So does this mean that the White House itself is going to go faster because the FAA has already submitted it to the White House, and and last I heard, it was waiting on White House approval for it.
Right. Yes, and this is the wonders of working documents inside the federal government. So the FAA tells us regularly that they need to work with 6 agencies to get approval for any document. I was trying to jot down 6. I come up with DHS, DOD, FCC, Commerce, and there are other folks in DOT. So there are probably a couple more, but those are supposed to, Alex, to your point, those folks have already written or signed off. They've approved, and now the BV loss NPRM is sitting with OPM. How about that? An entire sentence with nothing but abbreviations. Let's see if I can do that in
It's awesome.
The notice for public rulemaking for beyond visual line of sight has been approved by all federal agencies, and the author agency is the FAA, and it's with the Office of Public OPM. I don't know office. I don't know what OPM stands for, but I do know that the director of it is Russell Voigt.
All right, so this is the second, and obviously we're took 40 minutes to go through the first one. I will try and be brief on this one. I don't think this one has as much to do with recreational or even, I mean, it does have a lot to do with commercial, but there's so we'll go through the purpose just like we did for the first one. This is the Restoring American Airspace Sovereignty. Unmanned aircraft systems, otherwise known as drones, offer the potential to enhance public safety as well as cement America's leadership in global innovation. But criminals, terrorists, and hostile foreign actors have intensified their weaponization of these technologies, creating new and serious threats to our homeland. Drug cartels use UAS to smuggle fentanyl across our borders, deliver contraband into prisons, surveil law enforcement, and otherwise endanger the public. Mass gatherings are vulnerable to disruptions and threats by unauthorized UAS flights. Critical infrastructure, including military bases, is subject to frequent and often unidentified UAS incursions. Immediate action is needed to ensure American sovereignty over its skies and that its airspace remains safe and secure.
Boy, they sure love to throw fentanyl in there on anything they possibly can.
They do,
Mhm.
yes.
And also, is surveilling law enforcement necessarily a bad or illegal thing?
Yeah,
I mean,
time I checked, it's not illegal.
yeah, transparency in law enforcement is probably a good thing. All right. It's the policy of the United States to ensure control over our national airspace and to protect the public, critical infrastructure, mass gathering events, and military and sensitive government installations. And there's a lot of ands in this from threats posed by the careless or unlawful use of UAS. Hey, there's that word again, careless. Oh, that's their favorite word. All right. So, Section 4. Task Force to Restore American Airspace Sovereignty. To assist in ensuring control over our national airspace, there is hereby established the Federal Task Force to Restore American Airspace Sovereignty. The task force shall be chaired by the Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs or a designee and include principals or their designee from appropriate executive departments and agencies as identified. The task force shall review relevant operational, technical, and regulatory frameworks and develop and propose solutions to UAS threats as appropriate and consistent with applicable law, and shall make recommendations on the implementation of all actions identified in this order.
This is the one that scared me to death.
Mm-hmm.
So, APSNA. So this is clearly a lot of what NASA does today in working on the unmanned traffic management. FAA is all over this. And there is an enormous amount of industry involvement in this, in as much as the FAA's direction for the last 8-9 years with unmanned traffic management is to move it out into private industry. So this is a federal task force that's going to have an individual and going to bring in unnamed appropriate federal agencies, no public, no Congress, no industry. This one is very troubling. And then as you read all of the other sections, this is all about counter UAS.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh boy, here we go. So this one is very frightening. This whole executive order is very frightening to me.
It feels a little we're going to stop a lot of stuff and we're going to criminalize a lot of things. So
lock it down.
Yep. All right. So with respect to the rulemaking, this is airspace regulations to protect the public. With respect to rulemaking required by Section 2209, Section F of the FAA Extension Safety and Security Act of 2016, as amended, promptly submit a notice of proposed rulemaking to the Office of Management and Budget and the task force establishing the statutorily required process for restricting drone flights over fixed site facilities and interpreting to the extent appropriate critical infrastructure consistent with the definition of that term in this order, and promulgate a final rule as soon as practicable after publication of the NPRM. make national security and homeland security assessments under 2209 in coordination with sector risk management agencies, the Secretary of Defense, and the Secretary of Homeland Security, or the Attorney General as appropriate, and whenever military installations or operations are implicated, with the Secretary of Defense. And within 180 days of the date of this order, make freely available online notices to airmen and temporary flight restrictions in an open format, easily accepted for drone geofencing and aircraft navigation and guidance systems purposes. This online availability should supplement but not replace existing NOTAMs and TFR promulgation methods.
That's a lot to ask in 180 days.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus, we're going to duplicate the NOTAM and TFRs, but it's all going to act, perfectly in harmony.
Yeah.
Shit. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
You wouldn't even be able to get enough people to agree on an open format in 180 days, let alone implement it.
Or
Well-
a name for it,
Yeah.
because it's got to be an acronym.
Okay, so here's the fun part: enhancing airspace sovereignty. The Attorney General, in coordination with the administrator of the FAA, shall take appropriate steps to ensure full enforcement of applicable civil and criminal laws when drone operators endanger the public, violate established airspace restrictions, or operate a drone in furtherance of an element of another crime. On a recurring basis, the Attorney General shall submit to the President through APNSA legislative proposals that would revise criminal penalties for violations of restricted airspace. And within 30 days of the date of this order, and to the extent allowed by law, the Attorney General and the Secretary of Homeland Security shall ensure that their respective departments grant programs permit otherwise eligible state, local, tribal, and territorial agencies to receive grants to purchase UAS or equipment or services for the detection, tracking, or identification of drones and drone signals consistent with the legal authorities of those SLTTs. So that's state, local, tribal, and territorial agencies.
And of course, back on that item B, APSNA would be creating legislative proposals. Sounds like they, unless they incorporate, the FAA, we're the aviation experts.
So here's where it starts to get a little hairy, guys. So detection, tracking, and identification of drones and drone signals. To the extent permitted by law and consistent with the Fourth Amendment, executive departments and agencies shall use all available existing authorities to employ equipment to detect, track, and identify drone signals and drones and drone signals. Within 30 days of the date of this order, the Attorney General and the Secretary of Transportation, Secretary of Homeland Security, and the Chairman of the Federal Communications Commission shall revise the August 2020 advisory on the application of federal laws to the acquisition and use of technology to detect and mitigate unmanned aircraft systems to reflect relevant developments in federal law and regulations addressing drones.
So today we can find drones. Anyone can find drones in the sky, and it's the FAA and authorized federal agencies that can mitigate or utilize counter UAS measures. This feels like it's going to expand that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Within 60 days of the date of this order, the the administrator of the FAA shall provide, to the extent permitted by law, including the Privacy Act of 1974, automated real-time access to personal identifying information associated with UAS remote identification signals to appropriate executive departments and agencies and SLTT agencies for the purposes of enforcing applicable federal or state law with the appropriate national security and privacy safeguards. So,
yeah, that one's interesting. Yeah, because as it is right now, local, state, tribal, territorial SLTTs don't have access to that data. You can get it, but you have to go through the FAA. So there's a significant delay getting that. So that's interesting. They want to make it automated where it would be, similar to like a license plate.
Yeah,
yeah.
And
It'd be like a license plate essentially, where you can run a license plate and you can get the data back.
And you were on a panel at the Exponential on the DRIP, Drone Remote ID Protocol, which would encrypt some of this. And so an industry-developed sensible approach of how you protect the personal information for such a mechanism. So we're glad to have Rob present and on that panel, and we were invited on to speak and to represent both recreational as well as law enforcement. So
Yeah, it would protect recreational operators. That way your location isn't being broadcast to everybody.
Which would be amazing. I think we've
Mhm.
wanted that since the beginning.
Yep.
Geez, it only takes 3 years to get there. All right. Within 60 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of Homeland Security and the Administrator of the FAA, in coordination with the heads of other SRMAs as appropriate, shall publish guidance to aid private critical infrastructure owners or operators in employing technologies to detect, track, and identify drones and drone signals. So that's going to be more, I would imagine that's going to be like stadiums and, racetracks and public events and that kind of thing. All right. Let's see.
So you're on section. You just passed through section 8, right?
Yeah.
Same comment there. FNSA is the only body doing the work. Where's hopefully the FAA is part of APNSA, which is so. And no industry, no Congress. Who's the oversight? Ding, 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 ding. So this one has us nervous, or it certainly has me nervous.
All right. So section 9, within 30 days of the date of the order, the Attorney General and Secretary of Homeland Security shall explore integrating counter UAS operational responses as part of joint terrorism task forces for the purposes of protecting mass gathering events. The Attorney General, in coordination with the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of Transportation, acting through the Administrator of the FAA, Secretary of Homeland Security, the Director of OMB, good grief, Chairman of the FCC shall promptly take all appropriate steps to implement the recommendations of the March 2020 feasibility report to Congress with regard to the creation of the National Training Center for Counter Unmanned Aircraft Systems, and upon establishment of the center, focus initial training provided by the center on development of federal and SLTT capabilities to secure major upcoming national and international sporting events held in the United States, such as the FIFA World Cup and the 2028 Olympics.
So I just mentioned that the FCC, the FAA, and the IT part of the OMB were directed in 2018 in the FAA Reauthorization Act of 2018, Section 374, to allocate spectrum for permanent protected spectrum for UAS utilization. Still not done. So this one is okay. We're going to add additional agencies for a similarly difficult task and put a
ready
date
by
on
next
it.
year.
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, realistically, counter UAS, tracking, detection, possible expansion of counter UAS to state, local, tribal, and territorial folks, your personal identification information out there. Not feeling so happy about this one.
Right. And this is one where there would need to be laws created to on the mitigation and enforcement side. And so that's that's certainly possible. And there was effectively a counter UAS aviation rulemaking committee that studied this problem, and they basically came up with the conclusion that, well, we can find the drones in the sky, but so what? Once we found them, what can we do? And in many instances, the answer is not much. And so are they trying? This is a well-known problem for the last decade. So to me, this is proposed legislation is what really needs to happen here, not an executive order, within, let's see, whether a new authority, the APNSA, an individual chairing a task force with unknown agencies driving legislation and regulations.
So if remote ID stays as it is, this is definitely not going to encourage more people to add remote ID to their drones. If They're saying
Agreed.
more people have more quick access to their personal personal information.
Great point. Because not just the message that's being broadcast from your drone, but a nice tie-in to a database that gets you access to PII, personal information. Absolutely, Dan.
And it's not
Do you-
much of a stretch to say, oh, we're going to also record all of the flights that we possibly can, track it, put it into a database, and someone says, oh, someone was flying here last week. Who was it? Oh, yeah, let me look that up for you.
Absolutely. I mean, that's where network remote ID is headed, and that was mandated 5 times in the FAA Reauthorization Act of 2024. So I'm with you completely. That is not a stretch.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of this stuff I feel like is set to really, and they kind of mention it here, is really set to run potentially afoul of the Fourth Amendment. So I imagine a lot of this is going to have some constitutional challenge.
Yep.
And I mean, that's a future problem for sure. I feel for a lot of this stuff. So.
Great. So a dry topic, obviously, it's got us front of our chairs. This is an important part of what we do. For those who are members of FPVFC, we thank you for being members. This is the sort of thing that we're working on. We keep a close eye on this. And as we've talked about, in 30 days, we should be receiving the Beyond Visual Line of Sight Notice for Public Rulemaking. And we all smirk a little because it has been, 3 years of been waiting for the document.
Yeah.
But when that comes out, we will. That's the next really important, very critical FAA document for all of us, both not only recreational but commercial, as well as AAM, Advanced Air Mobility. So I think air taxis or air cargo. We will create our response quickly. We'll get that up and posted, and then we'll provide instructions on how we ask everyone to comment. And so that's one of the reasons that where to from here. That's a next step for us. And with these 2 executive orders, we certainly will be. There are a number of areas that we will be paying closer attention to.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you for sitting through with the litany of agencies and people. And I mean, some of these are they're just names of people, but realistically, super appreciate you guys sitting through with us on that. I know it's not what we normally do, but this is information that needs to be put to everybody. So, Rob, you got anything this evening?
Nothing major. The last section of the order you just read, Josh, talks about establishing that national training framework structure protocol, which I think is a great thing. They can't just, turn everybody loose on drone mitigation type stuff. It sounds like they're coming up with what the standard's going to be, and then they're going to certify and teach to that standard. So I think that's encouraging.
To a certain extent.
That's really the only thing I had to add on the whole comment thing. It's a whole lot to digest.
Some positive in it.
Yeah.
There you go. Dan, you got anything for us this evening?
Nothing that interesting, no.
Okay. Alex,
just minor things, like I think Walmart expanded cities that they're doing drone deliveries in, but yeah.
We'll cover that next time when we don't have, giant executive orders on the screen here. I did have that on my list tonight, but I was like, this is going to take all night. So
we've covered that stuff before.
Yeah. All right. Alex, anything from you, sir?
Nope, nothing else for me.
All right. Dave, anything to wrap us up?
Yeah, I just mentioned on a high note, this week is I.O. Happening in Muncie, Indiana, headquarters of AMA. So that's a multi-GP I.O., big races. So lots of videos coming out from there. And from the great state of New York, We Bleed FPV is out there hosting a bunch of whoop races. So they're nighttime whoop races in addition to, I believe, there's big stuff. Alex would know better than me, whether it's all spec pro and the big stuff at 7 inches, as well as the majority are 5 inches, as well as smaller. So a zillion different brackets. If you're into racing, this is one of the biggest races of the year, certainly in the United States. and international. So it's an international competition, and it's a really positive part of FPV, both for just the competition as well as getting young people involved. And so a happy aspect of FPV going on this week.
Absolutely. Excuse me. All right, guys. I will wrap this up. Thank you for joining us this evening. Appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate the questions. We'll keep an eye on this stuff. That's what we can say. We will let you know what's coming up, what's coming out, what you can say, what you can do. And by no means are we, the only people doing this. There's lots of people out there whose opinions, deserve to be respected. We're just one voice to kind of help on this stuff. So again, appreciate you guys being here. We'll see you in another couple weeks, and go out and fly something, have some fun. Hopefully it's not 110 degrees like it is here. So all right, guys, have a good night. Appreciate you.
You heard it.
Good evening.
Take care. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Fly so high, I'm hypnotized. What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through.